Welcome, everyone. It's so great to see you, and I'm really pleased to be here with Terry Rhodes. And you know what, Terry? I'm going to just
All right.
Okay, welcome everyone. I'm so glad to see you, and we're really pleased to have Terry Rhodes here, who's the Vice President for Quality Curriculum and Assessment at AAC&U, the Association of American Colleges and Universities, and Terry's also the Executive Director of the Value Institute. And Terry has been a long-time, I guess, founding member of AABL, and really pleased to always work with him, thinking about assessment, and especially about employers and what we need to do to really help students think ahead and plan for their future careers. And I know that's a big part of the work that you've been doing over the years at AAC&U with your employer survey and those sorts of things. So if we're going to leverage stakeholders in the pivot, which is the theme for this week, what for you, Terry, are some of the important things that we should be thinking about?
Well, thank you, Tracy, for the invitation to talk with the folks, and thank all of you who are tuning in for AABL's first virtual annual meeting. It's a grand experiment, as so much of our lives are these days. And so thank you for joining us, and hopefully these conversations and insights that the various folks who are doing workshops and engaging in resource sharing, talking on Slack and so on and so forth, that we're able to learn in the process. And I'm struck by the many challenges that we're dealing with now and how we've changed our lives and how we hopefully are thinking about what we're doing now as well as what we do as we move forward in this new virtual, quasi-virtual, uncertain time, because I think so much of what we have been doing is exactly the right stuff. And I think particularly it's the case with those who have been engaged for decades now in the ePortfolio digital learning environment. That's why I'm just so excited about this time and this meeting and the work that AABL has been spearheading, not just in the US, but around the world as its members have coalesced and communicated across international boundaries. And the nice thing is that even though we can't travel like we did before individually and physically, we can do it virtually. And we have been doing it as well as the in-person meetings, but now we're already set up and positioned. What we're working on with ePortfolios, they're digital, okay? They can be shared, they can be transferred. Part of what Tracy was alluding to is that I've been following, particularly recently, a spate of things such as Heckinger Report, and you find it in the Chronicle of Higher Education and much of higher education publications, in the news constantly about, well, we have to pivot and we can't have the luxury of what we did before in higher education. And so we have to prepare our students because the economy is falling apart and people need jobs. We have to do this quicker and faster and more efficiently, get them ready for contributing to the economy. And, you know, there's nothing at all that I disagree with or related to that. We want opportunities to be affordable, to be equitably available to all people, not just based upon their income. And we want our students to be well prepared for jobs. Tracy and I were chatting a little bit before this about we are privileged. We talked about to ourselves about being privileged. We have jobs. We're working remotely. We're working, as you can see, I look like I probably just got out of bed, which I didn't. But we're working in our homes. We don't have all the accoutrements of an office and colleagues around us every day to interact with. We have dogs wandering in and wandering out and things like that. But we can still address those needs of educating all of our students, because what we've been doing for most of our professional careers translates into this new environment. And it's not just the job. The Heckinger report this morning is, I'm stuck on that and I apologize, but was talking about a whole set of trends here where increasingly there are organizations that have arisen that are developing tests to see whether or not, to assess whether our students have learned what they need to learn. And these tests are things that they are selling to institutions of higher education and to employers as the way in which employers are going to be determining who to hire. So that if you apply for a job, they're going to give you a test. And that test, one of the examples that was cited was, in this test, we put a student on a desert island and asked them to solve a particular problem. And from that, we are learning so much, and we can see so much about the problem-solving capabilities of that student. And they're paying substantial amounts of money to have those prospective employees take that test. It wasn't clear whether the institution was bearing all of that cost or whether the student had to bear part of that. The prospective employee had to bear part of that, but they're spending a lot of money. And I kept thinking, my gosh, our institutions of higher education, particularly those of you who are engaged in the digital portfolio environment, are doing this already. So what we are doing is exactly what employers are looking for. It's what we have been arguing all along. We have with ePortfolios the ability to capture student learning in all of its manifestations. With our smartphones, again, not everybody, they're ubiquitous, but not everybody has them. So there's always limitations about everything we do. But there are also things that we as institutions can do, institutions of higher education, to try to overcome and close those gaps for students that we're trying to serve. But it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm a perfect example of that. If you're looking for perfection, I'm not dressed in a shirt and a tie, and I didn't brush my hair really and stuff, in any way. And I'm sitting here with light streaming in. That's not, you get the point. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you can still capture what it is that the student has done. The more that we engage in high impact practices that we've always talked about, oh, let's have one here and one there, and students should have two, and they'll be better prepared. Well, yes, they will be. They would be better prepared if they were a part of everything that we did, because that's the higher order. Those in business language are the soft skills, the critical thinking, the ability to work with others, to understand difference, to be able to civilly communicate and see and appreciate different perspectives, and how those may not be adversarial or deep divides, but really are prompted by the lens that a student brings into it and the language that they may use. And it may not be that there's a lot of divergence about fundamental pieces of that, but rather it's about understanding the language and the nuance and the different perspective. And that it doesn't mean that I'm wrong and you're right. It means that we have differences. We have a different background, a different preparation. We have brought different things to our classroom, to our learning environment, to our job, or whatever it happens to be. If we were really good at dealing with all these differences and things, the divorce rate would be so much lower. Anyway, I'm digressing here, but the point is we can capture the learning if we provide the opportunities for students to do it. If we let go of some of our need, it was something that I obsessed about and thought when I first started teaching, that, oh my gosh, I'm the expert here and they're going to be looking to me for all the answers and I can't make any mistakes. And obviously what I have to teach them and say to them is the most important stuff they're going to get in their academic career, especially in my academic program. And there was all this false set of things that needed to happen that were the case. And when I started to appreciate the fact that all of those students were bringing a life lived to that event, to that time, and they had done things, they had lived things, they knew things, they had preferences and values and things. And the learning was not going to take place in a vacuum. It wasn't going to take place in my picture of the world. It was taking place in our interaction as a place in the world at that time and the time that I had with them. In this environment, they're experiencing it even more in their own world. And so how can we build on that and learn from that? And if we have the tools, you folks out there have the tools, you're using them, our students are using them to actually capture the learning, put it into a context. It's telling the story, but also demonstrating the processes. The value rubrics were developed with ePortfolio in mind to be able to look at the learning over time, moving from individuals who were new to thinking in a formal way about their critical thinking, their creativity, about how to look at other cultures and to understand their own culture, because most of us don't understand our own cultures, to be able to understand someone else's culture in that kind of way, and to see the progression as we become more practiced and more at ease in learning and expanding and seeing difference in how it enriches as well as challenges us around held beliefs and those kinds of. So the rubrics are not perfect, but they were developed to try to take that arc of learning across the student experience, both within formal academia, as well as our co-curricular experiences, as well as our high impact practices outside of the formal academy and in their lived experience in their lives that they bring to that. So they were designed to do that. And our portfolios allow us to capture that as it's happening. And they, when done well, ask our students to reflect on that learning, to explain it. How does this exhibit this kind of expectation for learning? How can you see your own growth and development? It allows for the expertise of faculty and other educators to be brought into it. The complete learner record is out there that tries to capture the learning wherever it is and give it a place to live that the student can own, that the student can dip into, faculty can come into and be invited into and use, employers can be invited in and used. Employers tell us in the surveys that we do that they would love to see what the student can do. I use this example all the time, and my thanks to Helen Chen, one of our colleagues. Stanford connected its transcript, official university transcript, to the student portfolio so that those grades in those courses could be connected to an example of what the student did in that class. So the employers could say, okay, here's a student from Stanford, this is the GPA, they're wonderful. I still really don't know what they can do. I think they can probably do it well because they're from Stanford, but I still would like to see it. And they loved the fact that they could link on something and see what the student had done with the student talking about what they had done. And it helped them make that. It was exactly what the Hechinger report and these firms that are now developing new tests to do all of this were looking for, exactly what they were looking for. More and more places are doing that with the complete learner record that registrars and admissions folks and academic faculty have been developing and making available. It's possible to do now. So I'm going to stop my exhortation, but it's what we are doing and have been doing, what we have to do in our challenges in this environment. Let's take that rich, robust learning that we have and translate it in the ways that employers are looking for, not crass, down and dirty, but rather the fullness of what it is we are doing and the need for that, and employers will appreciate it.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think the whole idea of leveraging the practices that are already in place rather than creating a new test. I mean, it just sounds like here's another hoop for students to jump through, and they've already done that. They've already been reflecting on their learning in the case of portfolios and documenting what they know, understand, are able to do. So, so I guess the take-home message is that AAC&U and ABLE can help with that, and we're already doing it.
and you all out there are doing it. So.
Exactly. So this is a great space for us to start thinking about, if you aren't yet doing it, come and we'll help you get doing it. And if you are doing it, let's make sure that other people know about it so that it does translate for students into future employment and opportunities in the future.
And our students, and helping our students understand their learning. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the best gifts we can give our students, is that helping them understand and articulate the learning that's actually occurring so that they recognize it, and then they can also enter into deciding how best to use it.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing this insight with us, Terry, and we'll look forward to more conversation during week 3.
Yeah, and hang in there.